Let's bring in today's political panel. With me today is Terry Holt, a former aide to John Boehner, former George W. Bush spokesman and Mercury Public Affairs managing director, and Kevin Walling, a Democratic strategist and former Biden surrogate. Gentlemen, welcome. So let's start Senate side of the Capitol. Even with the runoff in Georgia, Democrats have held the majority. What's the impact?
It's a huge impact, and we're going to fight for every vote in Georgia because a 50-50 Senate means power sharing, as you know, reporting from the Capitol, Mike. If we flip that one Senate seat, we get Democratic majorities on each of these Senate committees. That means more judicial appointments passed by the Biden administration, by that Senate. That means more pro-middle-class legislation coming out of the Senate that we'll take to the House and fight it out there. So this is an important distinction made last night with that Nevada call and the 4 weeks sprint that we have in Georgia.
Terry, on the Republican side, there were great hopes about winning in Nevada. There were hopes about potentially winning in Pennsylvania. There would be plenty of time for finger pointing, but in your view, what went wrong on the Senate side?
Well, we saw the early signs of this back in the summer when Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. It energized a group of voters out there that turned out to be playing a very important role in these races, especially in the Fetterman race. And to a lesser extent, but more so in key places all around the country. We just didn't anticipate the new voters that were coming in for the Democratic Party. And when they did come in, the Democratic Party was organized enough to leverage those votes and make a difference on Election Day. I tell you what, Republicans are very likely unified in one thing about this election, and that was that we just got beat. And remember, in 2020, a lot of Republicans weren't admitting they got beat. A lot of people today are wondering what happened, and yes, we lost this election.
On the House side, our latest count is 211 for the Republicans, 204 for the Democrats, 218, of course, is the magic number to be the majority. Kevin, what's your assessment of the House at this point?
Yeah, it's going to be very close. Either way, 2-seat, 1-seat majority for either the Democrats or Republicans. I think it's going to come down to 3 seats in California and likely 2 seats in Arizona that are still outstanding in terms of where the chips fall. But we've got a lot of votes still left to count, especially in California, where half those votes are in for some of those congressional races. But I think you see Democrats buoyed across the board heading into these next couple of weeks. We've got leadership elections coming up. Speaker Pelosi is encouraging a free and fair conversation about that leadership. And you really have a lot of drama playing out on the Republican side, especially if President Trump announces on Tuesday from Mar-a-Lago. He's invited a number of those Republicans down with him to Mar-a-Lago, when that's the same day that they're going to likely vote on leadership in the Republican House. And they don't know if they're voting for a speaker potentially or a minority leader come next week.
So, Terry, 3/4 of the country in polling says we're on the wrong track. We have inflation problems, concerns about a recession. We've got a crime crisis in a lot of American cities. We've got a border crisis, and yet Republicans didn't get it done in the House. Your thoughts?
We've got a brand problem. The Republican Party didn't have a coherent message in response to the Biden agenda. And the Biden agenda, let's face it, they had legislative victories that they could point to. They had a dynamic electorate with the abortion issue. And Republicans had I've heard it said by a lot of others, a candidate quality issue. We have a brand problem with our party at this point, and it's going to take some serious reflection to figure out how we move forward, given that our primary voters are so still tied to Donald Trump. But then more and more party leaders see that at some point there needs to be a divestiture of the Republican Party from Trump, because at this point the only good Trump does for anybody is for the Democratic Party. Running against Trump is as reliable for the Democrats as it used to be to run against Hillary Clinton.
This Democrat is excited for him to run on Tuesday and announce.
One place where Republicans were red hot, Florida. Does that make Ron DeSantis the guy to beat in 2024?
It certainly does, and I think it's a cautionary tale for Democrats, because you saw Ron DeSantis run up the margins in a lot of key Democratic areas like Miami-Dade, even in Palm Beach county. So that is a cautionary tale. I think he did an effective job of gerrymandering that state as well, because I think you saw up ballot votes with so many more Republican seats. I think at the end of the day, they flipped 4 congressional seats. But to Terry's point, and it's a very good one, I think the president campaigned out on the trail saying, don't make this a referendum on me, make this a choice election. And at the end of the day, I think you saw voters say, we might not necessarily be happy with this administration, but we're not throwing our lot in with Republicans just yet.
So, Terry, is Ron DeSantis empowered, emboldened, and is former President Trump weakened based on these results?
Well, that's exactly what it is. Ron DeSantis came out and did what he said he was going to do. He's led the state even under difficult circumstances, and people are flocking to him. In fact, he should be a model for how other Republicans organize their state. Don't just take it for granted that Latinos are going to vote for Democrats. Go after those voters. Go after African American voters. Make sure that our tent, the big Republican Party tent, is big enough to accommodate a win where we can get 60% of the vote. That's unifying people and bringing them together, not dividing them. And that's a recipe for good leadership, like we'll see from Kemp and from DeWine in Ohio and in Georgia and in other places around the state.
Terry Holt, Kevin Walling, gentlemen, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Have an awesome day.